Often we find in relationships there's this dynamic of one partner being the more pursuing partner and the other person being the more withdrawing partner. If you're the more withdrawing partner, it may be for a number of reasons. Maybe you're more avoidant, but there's probably a loop that you're going through which is affecting the level of intimacy possible in your relationship. And that loop is an acronym. If you imagine the letters going around in a circle, the letters spell case, CASE. Now, the negative loop, which gets away of intimacy, stands for condescending. In which ways might you come across as condescending to your partner? You might not mean it, but how do you come across as condescending? The A stands for abrupt. How do you come across as abrupt? I know a lot of more reserved people try and say as much in as few words as possible, and sometimes that can seem quite sharp or harsh. Some people try and shut down any conversation that they're not comfortable having. Even physical contact, people can be quite abrupt in how they express that they don't want to have physical contact. The S stands for secretive. In which ways are you being secretive in your relationship? And it doesn't necessarily mean that you've done something that you need to hide. Maybe you're secretive about how you feel. Maybe you're secretive about what you're thinking. Maybe you're secretive about what you want. The E stands for evasive. How are you evasive when it comes to your partner? Some people avoid conversations they don't want to have altogether. How does that apply to you? Once you're able to notice the ways in which you might be going through this case loop, there's a positive loop, which also spells case. So instead of being condescending, how could you come across as caring? How would you demonstrate or express caring instead of being abrupt? How could you come across as approachable, open instead of closed? Instead of being evasive, S, instead of being secretive, how could you come across as sharing? How could you be sharing? Maybe that could be with information. Again, it could go back to sharing your thoughts, where you're at, your stance, sharing more of yourself. And the E, instead of being evasive, how could you come across as engaged? Now, this is taken from the winners and losers loops from Stephen Karpman. Stephen Karpman is very famous in the world of transactional analysis, and there's more to learn from these loops. There's also loops that the more pursuing partner will be going through, but that's a conversation for another time. This loop's quite helpful for me to look at, and I hope it's useful for you to think about.